Hi, welcome to another episode of Overnight Success. My name is Oluwamaiwaidowu, and today I am joined by journalist and all-around storyteller Aisha Salaudeen. Hi, Aisha.
Hi.
How you feeling?
I don't know the adjective. Alive. I'm feeling alive.
Okay, that's good. So when we do these interviews, I usually throw a silly question at my guests. So I'll give you one. So pick one.
Okay.
Every time you hit the expressway,
Mm.
the traffic light stops you. So you have to essentially wait it out.
Mm-hmm.
Or every time the sun goes down, your internet becomes slow.
What the song goes down like it's night and then the internet becomes
Your
slow.
internet as that's six, seven,
How
as the sun is going
slow?
down. Slow, like snail slow.
Like so, my internet is already slow. So what? What
Well,
do you
by
mean?
Nigerian standards.
Yeah, I'll pick
Slower.
traffic lights.
You pick a traffic light.
Yeah, because
Why?
evening is usually when I'm like on Netflix watching my K dramas, and it would be really frustrating if the internet is slow. I'll wait out the traffic. The traffic light thing is not that long, right? How many minutes?
No, it's just a normal traffic
It's
light.
fine. I'll
Okay.
leave.
Okay. Hi, my name is Maya Waido. I'm a lawyer, writer, and journalist, and I'm also editor-in-chief of Culture Custodian. Overnight Success is an interview series where I speak to some of my favorite creators and entrepreneurs on the journeys and stories that got them to where they are. That is, young, successful people doing interesting things. I don't think there's any such thing as an overnight success, or is there? Find out more by watching this video. And when you're done, please subscribe, like the video, leave a comment, and share it with as many people as possible. Thank you. Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Overnight Success. Yeah. You grew up in Jos.
Yes, apparently.
Not the apparently. So talk to me, what was that like?
It was good. Like, it was the whole community like setting. You know, when people say things like the whole neighborhood raises the kid, that was kind of what it was for me. So my mom would, she was doing her master's then, she would dump us somewhere with the neighbors. They'll make kose for us, which is like akara. We'll have fun, play in the sand, climb the mountains. It was, for the most part, a really great experience. I met all kinds of people, and I was the annoying child that liked to try things. So I was like riding bikes, jumping on, like, it was just a fun, really good experience for the most part for me.
Okay, so Jos obviously is very important geographically because it's in the north central, which is the point where there's a lot of intersection between Muslims and Christians and on a tribal level. So do you think growing up in Jos, did he influence how you view tribalism and like religion in any way?
The early years of growing up in Jos was for me extremely peaceful. I mean, I'm not, for example, the people in quotes, the owners of Jos are not like the Hausas. Jos has a lot of tribes. You typically find like people like the Biroms and all, but like we all live together. For me, coming from a Yoruba background, for people, Hausas also moving in Jos, like it was extremely peaceful. So for me, I didn't really have or understand the concept of tribalism earlier on because Jos was extremely peaceful and they were like wait, can I swear? I swear.
Yeah, you can swear.
Okay, they were like a ton of they were like a ton of like different tribes mixed in Jos. It was when the riot started that the concept of tribalism became clear to me. But early on, it's I think it's an interesting dilemma because the reason why I feel like I'm open-minded, which is probably not a great thing to say, but like is because I grew up in that environment with all kinds of people. But it's also the reason why I understand tribalism because at a point things switched up and there was tension. I don't even know if I answered the question, but it's a mix of two things.
Okay, so what I want to pick on is the points where the tension like picked up. So talk to me about that.
I think I became aware of it when we started having small riots here and there, and then you would hear things like it would either be, oh, the Muslims have started again, or the Birams have started, or the Hausas have started. And at first, it was kind of weird to me. I was like, why are we fighting? We've been peaceful this entire time. So it became a thing where the Hausa people who were migrating to Jos started. It was that thing where like you're in the UK and say go back to Africa.
Yeah, go back.
So it's that thing where like go back to where you come from. This is our land. It's that thing where they feel like you're taking over the land, or maybe the non-just people are like overstretching themselves, and then because primarily the Hausa people are Muslims and the non-Hausa people, the actual owners of Jos, are Christians, it automatically became like a religious thing, even though it's originally about tribe. And so my understanding of it became, oh, are we trespassing on the Birums, their lands? And then it just started to grow into, okay, I started to form the understanding that I don't belong here, because they would point you out, like, it doesn't matter whether you speak their language, you look like them. It'd be like, well, you're not one of us. And so that was like my very early on memory of not being a part of something, even though I initially felt welcome. Again, I hope I answered the question, because it's so layered that it's very hard to
But that's it.
answer.
There's no right question. There's no right way to answer the
Right.
question. It's just your perspective, and
Fair.
and then it's like so.
Fair.
And what you're saying, I think what I'm kind of picking up on is how much it links to like a lot of the tribalist rhetoric we saw during like the last elections, where people are voting and people are saying Ele Joigbo, and they're going to point them out, then they're not going to allow them vote just because they look Igbo. I don't even know what that means, or like what that is supposed to mean.
It doesn't make any sense. But it's exactly what it is. So it then became some kind of witch hunt where one tribe hurts another, one religion hurts another, there's a reprisal attack, and people are pointing you out on the streets like, this one, I think she's not one of us, or this one, he's a Christian, this one, he's a Muslim. So it kind of, it made me so anyway, all of that to say that when I hear all these rhetorics of people saying, oh, how can you be tribalist, oh, you look Igbo, you look this, it's not new to me. It's like, it's something that I understood really early on. So yeah.
Okay, so you went to uni in Bradford.
Yeah.
Which, linking back to this conversation, is a town/city with a very large immigrant population.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, what informed that choice, and what was that like?
Informed the choice of Bradford as the only option.
Going there, moving there.
I'm not gonna lie to you. When I started applying for unis, I wasn't really thinking a lot of things through. So I can't tell you that this was why Bradford. It was just Bradford. I had a bunch of options: Manchester, Kent, and Bradford. And I think when it came down to it, Bradford offered the most scholarships. So you know how if you school in the UK, they're giving you scholarship for being Nigerian, for being poor, for being this, that. And then it was relatively cheap. I mean, schooling in Kent is really expensive. So Bradford seemed, I would say if I had to force a reason, it would be because it was cheaper, but there's no logic. It wasn't like something was cool. I just happened to meet the immigrants. So when I got there, I realized that, oh shit, like there are a lot of immigrants here. There are a lot of like Pakistanis, Asians, and Muslims in Bradford. Like people are like, oh, did you plan that? I really didn't. I just met it there. So there was no logic.
Did that help you integrate?
No, because they're not like, they don't look like me and they're not me. But also, if you know me, I'm not the greatest person with people. Like, I don't really like talking to people, going out, meeting people. So I wasn't helping because I wasn't trying to integrate. I was just like in my room and going to class, going to the shops and back.
Okay. And so something happens while you're at Bradford that would essentially trigger everything that we've come to know about you. So someone offers you a gig as a presenter. Yes. And you're like, yes, I'll do it.
Exactly.
So tell me about that.
So I said I didn't think everything through when I was going to uni, down to my course. So I studied initially business economics. And I can't even remember why I studied this. I think it was just a thing of, so my dad's a finance person and they kept asking me, what do you want to study? And I didn't know, so I just picked the closest thing. So it was deep into my first year that I was like, shit, I really hate this course. And so I was looking for new things to do. And so one random day, I had a friend in uni, Ibukun. I don't know, she was proper dressing up in the snow. Who dresses up to go out in the snow? I'm like, where are you going with all seriousness? And she's like, oh, the radio. I'm like, wait, you can get a job at the radio. She's like, yeah. So I went with her that day. Luckily, I think head of production was there or something. And after her show, I talked to him and said, I really want to be on the radio. He's like, you have the job. I was like, why? He's like, because you talk so fucking much. Like apparently I talked so much that he was like, I like it. You talk so much. And then we did a training round and like I became a radio presenter and I really liked it. I also got feedback. People actually really liked it. So that gingered me because I wasn't sure at first. But then people were like, it was this show for Africans where I was just, so think about playing like a lot of hip hop music, like Afro. I don't want to say Afrobeats because I didn't have the language Afrobeats then, but that was what it was. So a
Yeah.
lot of West Africans, when it was time for my show, used to come to we used to call it the hub,
Okay.
and it would be playing on loudspeakers in the student campus, and so people genuinely liked it. So that gave me ginger, and I was like, oh, I really like the media. I didn't have the language for it then, but I knew that I liked radio, the media, and that's really how it I think started for me.
So in something you were saying now, there's a question I have for you,
Mm.
and it goes to you speaking about the validation
Yeah.
basically
Yeah,
driving you.
yeah.
So beyond validation, what else drives you?
Right now validation doesn't drive me, but then it did
Yeah.
because I mean I was 19. I did not know
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
was doing. I think for me it came easy to me. So it didn't feel like a chore. And I was comparing this to being in class. So being in class doing business economics felt like a chore. I had to will myself to go to study. But with radio, it was like I was looking forward to it. I was looking forward to the trainings. I used to come early. Like it felt visceral, like it was like something under my skin. And so for me, that was why I gravitated towards it.
Okay. So when you're done with uni, you move back to Nigeria.
Yeah, who does that?
What was your mindset like at the time? Or what was your mindset moving back to Nigeria?
A bunch of things. First, I didn't have clarity on what I was going to do in the UK. You know how some people study, they try to get jobs, they work there, like get a work visa and stay. I hadn't done any of that because I had an interesting dilemma. I wanted to be a storyteller. I knew that I wanted to do something in the media. I thought it was going to be radio. And I knew that I wanted to do it for Africans, so with the context of Africa. And I knew that it would be difficult to do that in the UK because I specifically wanted to do narrative storytelling where I would talk to like actual Africans with their stories. Doing that from the UK is very hard. So it was an interesting debate of should I just do ACCA, like and become a chartered accountant? Because for my master's, I did finance, accounting, and management so that I could be an accountant or come to Nigeria. Eventually, what made Nigeria win was that I think my visa was about to expire and my dad would have had to pay because I didn't have a job, some extra money. And he was like, oh, come on, I beg, don't stress me. And so I came home and then started making plans to get into the media, essentially.
Okay, so when you first came back, I think you worked in accounting. Huh?
Yes. But I quit after 3 weeks or 2 weeks.
Tell me
I can't
about that.
remember.
Tell me about that.
I mean, it's that thing where you move back home to your parents' house. For context, right? I have 3 degrees. So imagine having 3 finance degrees and telling your parents that you don't want a finance job. They're going to think you are insane. So I felt like I needed to get a job in finance just to prove that I didn't waste my time studying all those things.
Yeah.
So I did get a job in finance. The funny thing is I'm not even sure what the role was again. That's how much I was disassociated with it. Those 3 weeks, I swear, I can't tell you what I was doing because I don't even know. So I'll just come and do whatever they asked me to do, but I can't even remember what the role was called. And after 3 weeks, I'm not exaggerating, but I used to sleep off on my desk. And my colleagues would be like, she's sleeping. Like it was a thing, like she's sleeping again. Oh yeah, she's sleeping again. That's like who I was. I was bored out of my fucking mind. Like I missed the meetings. I was so bored. After 3 weeks, I just sent a letter. In fact, the way I did it, if I had a solid contract, they would have like made me pay some money, like fines. I literally just sent an email to HR. I'm not doing this. Emailed my supervisor and never came back. And just walked out. So yeah, that was it. I did accounting for a bit. In fact, I did ACCA. Like I'm actually a chartered accountant. But I just did it, I guess, because I felt like I didn't want to waste my degrees. But
this reminds me of College Dropout, the first Kanye West album, where there's skits where it's like he's making, because obviously the premise of the album is he didn't go to college.
Yeah.
So there are lots of skits making fun of people that went to college. It's like, I got all my degrees. I'm going to go to bed with all my degrees. And it's just
now, wow.
So the first time I would come to meet you or come to know you was while you were working at Stears.
Yeah, I forgot that would have been it.
And Stears obviously is a very interesting media company that has gone from one iteration into, maybe now we're talking, yeah. But what was it like working at Stears, like those early days?
Man, Stears is the single most important thing in my journey into becoming a storyteller or a journalist. Stears gave me all the training that I needed. In the sense that I walked into Stears as someone who just had a bunch of social commentary, one article in Al Jazeera, but no context with actual newsroom experience. So Stears was kind of like the place that said, okay, let's give her a chance. She seems like she has potential. Stears is extremely pivotal in my journey as a journalist. I would argue even more pivotal than CNN. When I got to CNN, I already knew everything. So Stears was where I learned how to write properly, where I learned, Michael was like my direct editor. And at the
That's the question I
Oh,
was going to
sorry.
ask.
Okay,
But you
hold
can
on.
continue.
No,
You can
but
continue.
Stairs was where I learned how to talk to people, how to ask questions, how to write. Stairs was where I wrote stuff that I didn't care about. Because I was used to a life of, oh, I don't really like accounting, I'm going to sleep. Oh, I don't really like this, I'm going to force myself to do it. At Stairs, it didn't matter whether or not I liked it. It's like you would do it and you would do it well. So Stairs was that 1 year was very great. I wrote
Was it just 1 year?
yeah. But it was so pivotal. Like I was writing multiple articles. I was breathing
I
stories.
still remember some of the stories you wrote. Like I can tell you, like, and that's I think one of the things I was very curious about, and is one of the things I was gonna like segue into was the diversity of the work you were doing. For instance, I remember the suit story you did.
Yeah.
I remember the story you did on the podcast revolution.
Yeah.
Because you quoted me in it.
That's what-
And so and I think because that was what it was like, okay, this girl is special because it was that every week, I don't remember how frequently the articles were coming out, if it was maybe one a week or maybe
I actually don't remember.
whatever, but it was like you could not predict what topic she was going to cover, but
Yeah.
then she would just do it such justice that it was just like, yo, there's nobody in the streets who is doing better work.
It's Michael. Michael is extremely which is why we are friends now. So here's how Michael approached storytelling for me. I came in with this idea that Stears is a business publication.
Yeah.
I'm gonna use my accounting degree to, do some good. And Michael approached writing from a place of knowledge. So it would be stuff like and then so here was my commute was I would enter a bus from Ogba because my parents lived at Ogba, and I would go all the way to Lekki every day, 9 to 5.
Was it your VI?
Was it VI? Oh, it was
It was
VI.
VI, it was
Sorry,
VI.
yes, you're
Yeah, it
right,
was VI.
VI. That commute was long to me because imagine waking up early to enter bus every day. And then, so there were, it was stuff like I would get to the office, I'll be like, God, Michael, there was so much traffic on the way. And Michael would be like, write about that. Or I would say, Michael, how come Nigerians are always drinking Hennessy? Write about that.
Yeah, I remember that story.
Michael, why is the road back? There was a point I stopped talking in the office. And you know how hard it is for someone that talks a lot to stop talking, because anything I say, Michael will say, write about it. That's why our stories were so diverse. Michael cultivated curiosity in my mind such that I stopped complaining and saying, why is this thing like this? And my approach would be, I would go and research it and be like, Michael, I have an idea.
So this is why this thing is like
that
this.
was why, exactly. And that was why the stories were so diverse and unpredictable, because they were based off my curiosities that Michael forced me to be curious, which, I mean, when it was happening, of course, I was extremely frustrated and we didn't get along. In fact, I remember there was a person who was like, why do you hate Michael? That's how much I would beef him but looking back now, of course, he's the most important person in my journey because he made me research, write about stuff. Michael would be the person that would send me, you know how on Pockets you can, what was that thing called? You could collaborate. I could see the articles he was reading. He could see what I was reading.
Yeah.
Michael would curate a reading list for me and be like, read this shit. And we would talk about it on our meetings. He made me, when someone forces you to accumulate knowledge. That's why I say till today, Stears. And they were very experimental because, I was the first full-time journalist. Yeah. So it would be things like, I'll say, oh, there's suits in Port Harcourt. So Michael would be like, you know what, how much will it take you to enter God is Good Motors and go to Port Harcourt? They were fueling my curiosity. I'll say, oh, I heard that there was a story I did about a community called Kurata in Ogun State. They've just been covered in smoke for 20 years. Mm-hmm. I mentioned this in passing, and Michael is like, go there, we'll pay for your transport. So they really encouraged me to write all kinds of shit. And that's has been the biggest help. Till today, I'm extremely grateful for it. So that's, anyway, just to answer your question.
Yeah. So obviously, you work at Stears, you build this diverse range of experience and context. And what did that do for the type of journalism and storytelling you wanted to do going forward?
It made me discontent. with what I was then seeing, because, and that's twofold, that's both good and bad, but it made me, because I had learned to ask why, how can we do better, how can we write about this from a new angle. I became discontent with what I was seeing with like other media publications, and just became extremely judging general, which is not a great thing, by the way. So I would say it helped me acquire taste, just because of Michael's curiosities. Like, I would see a story and be like, they could have done this, this, and this. Of course, there's context for why they didn't do it the way I was doing. But like, I mean, of course, I wasn't thinking about that at the time. So I would say it made me develop taste and made me discontent. So when I write a story, I'm never saying, oh, it's done, it's finished. I'm constant, because Michael's voice is ringing in my head, right? So I'm constantly thinking, how can this be better? Is there any angle that I'm missing? What can I do to elevate it?
Yeah.
So I would say like it just made me develop better taste, to be honest.
Okay. And so after a year at Stears, learning from Michael, you make the move to the big leagues.
I'm not fucking sorry, don't kill me.
So you move from Stears and you go and work at CNN. And nobody needs any like introduction or any context as to what CNN is or the type of things they do there. But talk to me about that move.
I think the most interesting thing about CNN for me was, it was a lot, culture shock a lot, but it was, I said that I was curious a lot and I had taste, but when you work at a global organization, what you thought was taste and curiosity is nothing compared to what, like, the big leagues. So, for example, my thinking was always limited to Nigeria, but at CNN, your thinking has to be the entire world. No one really cares about Nigeria that much. Like, CNN looks at Nigeria with a bird's eye view, not like the close lens that we would with
the
local
granular
media.
detail you look at it here.
So I had to like frame my thinking slowly to be more about the world and not just Nigeria. But I also had to frame it to changing my language such that I'm no longer writing for Nigerians. I'm writing for everyone, but I need them to understand the West African context, because my role was West Africa, right? So that was one of the most interesting things for me at CNN. It was also, I thought Stears was tight in terms of getting your stories right, your sources, all of that jazz. CNN is a whole other level. And that's why till today, when people say, at least for the digital side, I don't know about the TV, by the way, because I don't know how that works. When people say CNN fake news, it's impossible for CNN to give fake news for the digital side. Those things are tight. Maiwa, you will write something that you know to be true, and CNN's the road. That's the team that checks like the legality, the standards of what you say. Will be like, I know you say it's true, but prove it. If not, that thing is not fucking going to go out. So it was a new experience for me. Like, and if I make an assertion, I have to prove it. Like, it was like elevating the standards of journalism for me, which is why I now had no patience for like our local media as well. So it was a very interesting, like, it was a whole different kind of training.
But you see, what you're saying is killing me, because from Stears, you already had no patience.
No, this was, I was playing.
So this was not elevated.
I was playing at Stears. Michael is not going to ask me, for example, to prove that Nigerians drink Hennessy. We know they do. CNN is going to tell you to prove it. And your proof can't just be, you interviewed 50 people and they drink Hennessy.
The data.
It was a whole level of training, but like I liked it a lot, because I mean, I'm writing globally, I'm doing work globally, bird's eye view, making a lot of connections. It was good.
So why did you leave?
Why did I leave?
And give me the honest answer. Don't give me the answer you gave them in your exit interview.
No. I left because I wanted to. There's many things. I wanted to try new things. So with CNN has their editorial policy for how you can do things. It's going to be very difficult for you to stray from that way to like do something in a slightly different or creative manner. And when you've done the same thing over and over for 5 years, you kind of want to try something new. So Stears, for example, I could be creative and try new things. But when you are within a newsroom, you have to play by their rules. So I got tired of like the same thing over and over. I wanted to be able to, because like sometimes you have an idea for how to tell a story, like, it should be like this. And then you're in a newsroom that's like, yeah, we know, and that's cool, we promise. But like, no.
Still got to follow the rules.
Exactly. So I got bored of that. And I also wanted to And the honest truth is, I wanted to leave conventional journalism. When I say conventional, I mean newsroom like journalism. I wanted to be able to expand on podcasting, on other formats, make a film, all of that. And being in that setting would not afford me the time, but also it would. I was getting too comfortable as well. And like my biggest thing is discontent. When I start getting too comfortable, I feel like it is scam. Like why is it now so easy to get up and do a production? Like I could do it in my sleep. I could write scripts in my like it became too easy. So I needed a new challenge basically.
Okay. You kind of spoke about it, but I'm very curious, obviously, with the 360 view of going from radio to coming home, becoming a writer, and then working multimedia with CNN. Like, how would you describe the evolution of your storytelling?
I think for me, it's like it looks like I'm always looking for how to tell stories in multiple formats. I started with radio, I started writing opinion pieces, went to articles, podcasts, TV shows, documentaries. I just made a film. So I think my storytelling is I'm constantly looking for ways to tell stories, different formats. I don't even know if that answered the question.
Now, that leads me to my next question. What's more important, the story or the format?
It sounds like a question I was asked in first draft. God, this is a very, very hard question. They're both really important. Both really important. But if like someone put a gun to my head and said you must choose, I think I would say the story.
Which is funny because I complete opposite end.
It's really hard. It's one of those things where they both complement each other. So you can have a really, really great story, but if you don't use the right format, it's meh. But I have had situations where I've sat through really boring stuff because there's a story there or there's new information there. I've sat through stuff that I thought could have been better, like weird formats, because the story was like, made me strong.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, the story was strong rather.
So the reason why I said the format is because I feel like the format is what defines it. There's so many stories, like social media, like the world we live in, like we're inundated with so much information. But I think more often than not, the things that resonate, it's mostly because of how it is communicated. If you listen to, for instance, I'll give you an example. I listened to your episode of I Like Girls with the one about the sex lives of African women.
Okay, Nana Dakwa, yeah.
I listened to that maybe last week on a morning walk.
Mad.
So, and I remember because why it was funny was because as I listened to it, someone I know's voice was on it. So I just screenshot it to them.
Whose voice?
You know who now. But my point is, that story made sense to me because, or that format made sense to me because receiving that information that way. I know that obviously African women have their sex lives, but like, it's mostly how the information is presented.
Fair.
So like that story resonated with me more because of the way it was presented, because of the format that it was in.
I think that's why I said this question is complex, but it's also a thing of preference. My goodness, it would help to have a really good story. That's just it.
No, yeah, a good story is always like it's a starting point. Like that's the foundation. Then obviously you now match it. To be honest,
I feel like the question should be a good story or the format, because story is subjective. Is it a good story?
Yeah.
Or just some random ass story?
Well,
so let's have it. If it's a good story, I'll pick the story. But that's gone to my head. That's really hard.
Okay. And I referenced something, I Like Girls, which is it's an interesting title. Very on the nose. And it's a podcast I enjoy a lot.
Are you just saying that because I'm here?
No. I enjoy it. The thing is, the type of person I am, I consume a lot of content. And it's that thing about taste. Fair. Where there's a certain way I believe information should be presented, particularly for audio, which is something I feel like I have kind of like specialized in. But I like to listen to the ones that I feel like are on comparable or relative like taste level. So it's like, I'm going to listen to this because I want to know what other people are doing.
Right.
And it's also a fun podcast because the stories you tell are very important. And so now that leads me, So first of all, why did you decide that you wanted to do a podcast dedicated to women and all the ways that like they take in the Nigerian and African context?
Two reasons. One, it's what I said about I'm constantly looking for new ways to tell stories. And so the podcast came at a point where I was quite sick of writing articles. And my first love was radio, audio.
Yeah.
So I thought I can't go back to the radio now. It doesn't pay well, sorry. But like, what's close for me to experiment with? And then, of course, podcast felt super challenging, and the obvious answer, because at the time I was looking for something hard to do because I was bored, right? So that's why like podcast came to me. But also why a podcast specific to African women. I'm like very, very feminist. Everyone knows me. Like it would have been weird if the first podcast I did was not about this. I elevated it to be African women, not Nigerian women, because by the time I started I Like Girls, I had been doing a lot of work on the continent, like with CNN, and I had a lot of networks. I didn't even want. It felt limiting.
Enhanced perspective.
Yeah, and it just felt limiting in Nigeria. So that's why I chose a podcast about African women.
Okay, and of the different stories you've covered, maybe we can limit this to like maybe each chapter. So like CNN, Stears, and then with I Like Girls. Like which ones would you say stand out to you and why?
I only remember the stories that someone later messaged me or came to me to say, "Oh, this did this for me," because that's kind of like the most important thing for me. So I like to tell stories that I feel like are impactful. It doesn't matter what kind of impact it is, whether big or small, as long as someone consumed it and felt, "Oh, this did something for me." So with CNN, it's the stories that people came back to say, "Thank you for writing this." So stuff like, I did a story about some guy called Mustafa Salah in Gambia who started this organization. I forget the name now, but like it's an organization that essentially wants people against irregular migration because he experienced that shit himself. He was arrested in Libya, all of that. And he sort of made a promise to himself that when he was in the detention camp, that if I make it out of here, I'm going to go back and tell everyone like this is not it. So I mean, I wrote the story, did a bunch of stuff, and a few months after he messaged me to be like, your journalism helps the people that initially didn't believe me to believe me, because a bunch of people were like, Izela, you're just a hater, you don't want us to go and make money in Europe. But because the story had a lot of context, a lot of like data, and a lot of like interviews from other people that experienced it, he said he did that for him. And I felt like, oh, so something that I just worked on for a couple of weeks had this much impact. And it felt like good that you did something that is helping someone. So those are the kind of stories that gravitate. How did gravitate enter this English? But yeah, like it's that story is one example out of many at CNN, or like the NSAS story. Things that that the impacts, there's small impacts even from like the tiny corner that you wrote it in your workspace. Yeah.
So NSAS is a story you've recently covered with your documentary film, whichever language you want to use. Talk to me about covering that story as a journalist. Like, what did it do to you?
I don't want to say I regret it, but if there's a word that is close to regret, it was extremely difficult. It was, I don't know if it's like the closeness of NSAS and like, seeing what happened in real time that made it hard. Because I'm not a stranger to hard stories.
Yeah.
Like half the stories I do are very difficult and lots of tears, but that was really hard. So think about watching dozens of footage of people just talking about death, of people dying, of police shooting people. It was incredibly difficult to do that story. But what we wanted to do anyway was we wanted to create a comprehensive guide to understanding police brutality in Nigeria. So that's why if you watch the documentary, it's not just, oh, NSAS, this happened, because a lot of Nigerians know what happened, but it was more about, this is how we got here. So it was stuff about like the history of SARS. A lot of people don't know how SARS started or how like the police brutality became rampant. So it was a lot of, let's tell you how we even got here, because what happened, but how do we get here? And it was a lot of like looking at the far-reaching effects of NSAS, stuff like people leaving, stuff like a political rise, and all of that jazz. So we wanted to make a comprehensive guide to understanding police brutality in Nigeria. We did that. There were a lot of costs, but we did this.
One interesting thing about your appearance on Overnight Success is you're the first person in a husband and wife pairing.
I'm screaming.
To appear on this great, vaunted platform. So, what's it like being married to a storyteller like Fu'ad? What's it in that house like? You guys just wake up and just throw ideas at each other.
No. I think Fuad, so my husband gives me perspective. He's an ideas person. There are only two people I know that consume more information and content than my husband. He has the most useless information about everything. He knows why white t-shirts were invented. He knows why, I don't know, man. He knows like the most random things, right? And so for me, I'm more of like the executor or the executioner, not the executioner. That means something else.
Yeah.
So being with married to a storyteller that consumes a lot of content about rubbish is that he always gives me perspectives for stories or new things, stuff that I never would have imagined. I have a story idea because he has consumed so much content about different formats. He's like, why don't you do this, approach this, that? So he always has ideas for how I should like execute my stories or ideas. He's just that person that you want to bounce. He has so much taste that he can't hide when an idea is bad. So when I want to like check if I'm on the right track with something, I throw it at him like, and I kind of just gauge what he says. Yeah.
I'm not married to Fuad, but that's what Fuad means to me too.
Exactly.
Like Fuad is, and I say this all the time, and I think within our generation, and I say this with all sense of
Generation.
with all sense of modesty and humility, I think I'm one of the smartest people in terms of understanding the history of media and understanding how media functions.
Right.
But Fuad is where, iron sharpens iron. So the way I obviously have thought about this thing very deeply, he's probably even thought about it deeper. So Fuad is like the ultimate like Swiss Army knife where I'll call Fuad, and this is what I'm thinking. And I don't put out job, Kenny, what is it called? I don't put out job ads because if I'm ever looking for anybody, I just message
yes.
Fuad. I message Fuad, I'm like, Fuad,
Yes.
this is what I'm looking for. Fuad will find me the perfect, and
Yes.
he's done it multiple times.
Yes.
So,
Fuad is plug for that.
so I can imagine, like, obviously living in the same house as him, and obviously all this energy that is like being transmitted. But I find it interesting that you refer to yourself as the executor because feel like Fuad is very like obviously he generates a lot of ideas, but you are the
If
type
you
of
said this and he was here, he would be like, what is Bayo talking about?
No. But I see the dynamic of like obviously him generating a lot of ideas and you just like okay, filtering it down. It's like okay, let's do it like this, whatever, and I'll execute. And that now brings me because obviously I Like Girls is now on the
Vistanium.
So again, what's that like working with your husband?
It's been a learning curve for me because we are extremely different people. We approach things differently. So Fuad has a lot of experience working with people and managing people.
Yeah.
Right. And I didn't have that experience until I grew like to a new role in CNN. So the way I approach things is very difficult. I approach things matter of factly. He approaches things from approach with kindness because like when you're leading a team, you can't just say, oh, you're fired. There are processes, all of that jazz. Like, that's how Fuad is built. So working with him for the first time for me was, I think, on I Like Girls. And I was just like, it was a struggle. I was like, waiting.
Did you sack him at a point?
Wait, what?
He's
He told me that I sacked him. He's exaggerating. I just told him that we have to let him go at this time.
What does that mean, guys? If someone tells you we have to let you go at this time,
sack feels like a heavy word.
Well, you sacked him.
So
did you sack him and not give him food after?
No, I told him on Slack, and I don't think he was at home, so we didn't really have a conversation until we got home. But he understood where I was coming from because he had not been putting his best foot. But just to fast forward, like it was very difficult working with him the first time, and I was worried because like married people working together is also a different dynamic. But what's interesting is that now that we work together at Vistanium, we're not even the only ones. There are two other co-founders.
Yeah.
So that helps balance things out. But everybody is kind of insanely aware of their own contributions and roles, and we have like accountability checks where he's not pulling his weight, I'm not pulling my weight, and he can be like, what the fuck? So it's easier to work with him because we are not going with like, I mean, the sentiments exist because we are married, but did you do the work or not? You didn't do it. It doesn't matter that you are married. So like working together and having accountability checks helps. He's also extremely kind. So when one person is blowing hot and that person is just so like he's helping me be a better manager in the sense that my initial reaction to things that don't make sense, for example, within the team is, who the fuck did this shit? And Fuad's reaction is, oh, XYZ person, why did you think this was a good like he's working with you to understand, to tell you why your approach was stupid. Meanwhile, mine is just, what the fuck is this? So I'm learning a lot from him about how to work with people.
Empathy.
Yeah. I don't even know that it's empathy. I think now I've seen it to be common sense, because why are you sparking? No, but why are you sparking? So like I'm learning a lot like from him, and I actually like it. It's a learning experience for me. Like he's just the opposite of me, and he helps to like, you know.
Okay. So something you referred to a lot over the course of this conversation, and it's been like an animating force in your work, is being discontent. So at what point do you get content?
You don't. That's the thing.
I relate to that actually.
Yeah, you don't. So when people hear discontent, they think it's just like some grumpy old person that's always like, this is not good enough. But it's really more like, oh, this is great, but I wonder if there would have been other ways to elevate
If this
it.
could be better.
Yeah, or if we could add new things. So it's not necessarily, waking up and saying, I hate everything, or this is not good. It's that, and that's like why Vistanium, Vistanium exists, because of Fuad's, of course, discontent, but he got me to buy into it. It's that whenever Vistanium makes something, we're like, how does this thing elevate any discourse? How does it, is it the form? Like, it has to elevate something. It has to improve, whether it's the story, the format, something has to give. So that's how we approach this content. We want to make sure that whatever it is we make or create, there's at least one thing that slightly elevates the story better than what currently exists. So yeah.
So I end this interview by asking two questions. So the first one, if you were my producer for the day, and this is fantastic because you actually produce in real life, but if you were my producer for the day and you were helping me book guests, who would you book to appear on Overnight Success?
Like a Nigerian?
Anybody.
Ted Oladele.
He's on my list. And Fuad also said him.
Yeah, Ted is the only other person that I know that we're extremely similar. So this is a bias, but also he's just extremely brilliant. He's an amazing product/designer, and I want to hear him talk about his journey. So Ted is on my list. Who else? You know that thing where you read 50 books and someone asks you, what book have you read this year, and then nothing comes to mind? That's what's happening to me right now.
Okay.
I'm going to go home and be like, I should have said this person's name.
You can send it and we'll edit it.
Fuck that.
And finally, you sat down with me today. This interview has been a long time coming because you were supposed to film on the same day for our film. That day you were like, we have different lives.
Yeah, we do. Like, bro.
And so, is there any question you have for me? More than one, could be 2, 3, 4, whatever.
Like about overnight success or in general?
Anything you want me to answer on camera.
When you think about a story idea, doesn't matter the format, what's your execution process like? This is purely selfish. I'm just curious about how you approach things as culture custodian.
What's my execution process like?
From like, oh, I have this idea to, oh, it's finally.
The way we function as CC is we have like, every week we have 2 calls. So
editorial calls.
Yeah, so we have one editorial call and one something that we just started doing, which is like an R&D session. So it's it's us looking at work that. So each week someone comes with like something that they want all of us to go and dig into, and we'll go and dig into it, and we'll have like an hour long conversation about the things we liked, what made it tick, and the reason why we're doing that is back to the point about elevating taste, because a lot of us who have been schooled in the Nigerian Nigerian media ecosystem, I find that there's a lot of unlearning that we have to do, and there's also like in terms of, no offense to anybody, but no one's trying to do anything the way like traditional like night newspapers have reported news. Like that's just not where it's at for me. So, and I think that is a value that people come to CC for.
Okay.
Because they know that, and it's something that obviously we try to inculcate a lot in like the writers in the team, is that, okay guys, we're not going to cover the story quicker than like Linda AKG or like Punch or
Pulse.
Nation or Pulse. But what we want to do is we want to go to like the level that they might not go into. So there is like a very qualitative approach. And that comes from obviously improving taste, from obviously trying to expand people's worldviews, try and make them obviously look at what best practice is in
Right.
a climate and a context that isn't here, so that they are not bogged down. Because I find that it's like sometimes if you let yourself obviously tailor to like the Nigerian scene, you're not ambitious in how you cover work or how you do work. So that is like a first. That's like a first, obviously the first piece. So a lot of times, okay, if there's an idea, it's like, okay, first of all, how do we tell this story?
Right.
Would this be best like in like an audio format where maybe
Text.
we get like an expert and we have this conversation with them, or would it be best in like an uncultured, like an audio documentary format where we kind of dig into it, and by the time you finish listening to it, you're going to come out of this like obviously, like let's just write an article because that's just how it functions best. But then the other thing I'm now kind of leaning into is also like the multi-platform, like multimedia model. So being
Right.
able to take things and reappropriate it for different audiences
The
and different
purpose. Fair.
contexts. So like right now, there's like work that we've done, like that we'd had on the website that it's like this is always doing well. So it's like why don't we just flip
Put it in a
in
different
reappropriate this for
format.
TikTok?
Yeah.
Like so if we can see that this is something people are always Googling, and so clearly it's something people are curious about. If we like, get someone, put them behind a green screen, get them to just walk us through this thing in like 2 minutes, like it'll fly. Like so, a lot of times it's literally just like it's like okay, how best should this idea be expressed, or
Okay.
and then also kind of obviously taking into account our capability and like
Yeah. I was gonna ask.
yeah, like so it's like okay, do we have the capability to do this? Like sometimes there are stories where it's like we want to do it, but maybe it's going to require like obviously extensive investment. So
Yeah.
it goes into a Google Doc where
Stay there first.
it'll stay there first, and then obviously it's like okay, let's go and play around and see when we can come back and do this thing. But yeah, that's it in a nutshell, really. Yeah, for me it's like very qualitative work, and I say it all the time. Like the greatest compliment I pay people is if I listen or watch or see something and I'm like, I wish I created that. Like that's how I know that. So sometimes,
bounds, yeah.
yeah, like I'm like, okay, guys, this is what this person is doing. We need to do better, or we need to at least be doing like comparable work. But yeah, that's it in a nutshell. Any other question?
Yeah, but I feel like it's irrelevant. They're all about CC, so let's not.
No, you can ask. You can ask.
How my problem with, well, not problem, like what I've come to realize with like media businesses in Nigeria, in Africa, is that there's no model. Like nobody has hacked that model of like making money. We all just do ads. Yeah. What has been your experience generating revenue, generating revenue for CC, considering we're in a climate where it's extremely difficult to break even in the media?
I think for
Like I
us,
know you guys do ads, but like
Yeah.
is are we like doing that same model? Is that what CC does?
yeah. So for us, I think the thing is, us is not, we can't break even. It's not it. We have to like be more than break even because it's a fully like this is blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
So it has to be like even if it's 500 naira at the end of each month, that just stays like that's. But it can't because if we break even, then we're not doing anything. We've not moved forward. I think the approach I have or the approach we have really, and someone said this thing once that CC for them it sounds like a lab where we're trying different things.
Like a creative studio.
Yeah, we're trying different things. We're going to put out like we're going to mess around with so many different formats. And part of the reason why we can do that is because obviously I guess maybe the work would that we're maybe obviously what we're generating from advertising, which is like you do that one for like popular appeal, mass appeal, but you know that like this is not what you want to do. If you had your way, this is not what
I
you'd be
see.
doing.
So-
So you use that to subsidize
I
the
see.
like highbrow work, the things that you want to do.
So are you saying that the goal is not to hack that media model for you guys? So you're not trying to go like a route with that Pulse, for example, would take. It's more like let us niche down and make a specific kind of content and use the small money from advertising to subsidize or substitute. Do I have it right?
So that is it in part. But I think part of what we're also trying to do is we're also trying to create formats that will explode.
Oh, fair.
So, and that's the thing, like overnight success is going to be, it's that thing, because again, it's like this format, it's been steadily building.
I see.
There's going to reach a point where it's not steadily building, it's going to explode. And when it does, we will now obviously be able to do all the things that we need to do. But what we're trying to do, essentially, is this classic thing of trying to grab eyeballs.
Yeah.
So it's like, we're going to try and grab eyeballs on Twitter, on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, on web.
Something will click
There'll
in the
be
future.
something that will click. And then obviously, once you can kind of obviously take that thing, and you can then, like, once it explodes, you can now obviously maybe carry the other things on its back, because it's that thing of, like, once one person makes it, we've made it out of the hood, because it's like
Fair. No, that's fair.
because there will be like a knock-on effect. So for us, and I think it's the very enjoyable part of the process, because we're creating all these things at a point where the stakes are low. It's like, so
At the stakes low, Marwa.
the stakes are low now.
What do you mean the stakes are low?
Think about it. If you've collected 5M USD from VCs who don't have patience,
Yeah.
they need you to be generating X amount.
Yeah.
You don't have time to experiment.
Fair.
You
So
just have to just do the thing that you know that this thing is working, and just keep repeating it, because that is what
fair.
is going to favor them.
Okay, so that's what you mean.
When I say the stakes are low, it's like, okay, I don't
Nobody's
have,
pressing your neck to be like,
yeah, like I
"Let's
don't
do
have
that."
those pressures, so we can take more chances, we can experiment more, we can try out different things, and it's like, okay, this thing didn't work, it didn't work. Maybe this is why it didn't work. Maybe let's correct and try and see it. But a lot
Fair.
of it is, just trying to like play around with all these ideas and all these formats and all these different things, and obviously position ourselves in a way that, like, we're basically primed for explosion. So yeah, that's my answer to that question.
Okay.
Very long-winded, but yeah.
No, but there's no right or wrong answer, because this thing is okay. Yeah. No, I don't have any more questions.
Okay. Thank you for watching Overnight Success. Thank you, Aisha, for speaking with me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Catch you guys this time next week.